Hey everybody, welcome to the channel. If you've been here before, welcome back. It's been a minute since I've uploaded on here as I got a nasty infection in my arm and couldn't really use it for the last 3 weeks.
I think I'm okay. It's just a little bite. Yeah.
As a result, the channel's been lacking in new content, but I'm trying to fix that right now. So what we're going to do today is carry on the drill cookup series. This is going to be part 2, breaking down how to make melodies. There's a link in the description for part 1 if you haven't seen it, so go and check it out if you haven't already after you've watched this video. Hopefully you'll find it useful, and the free template will make it easier to follow along with what we're going to do today and what we're going to do for the rest of the series as well. So what I thought we'd do today is show a couple of different ways that I go about making melodies for drill. First one I'm going to make from scratch, and for the second one, over at Patent Sounds we've just released a new piano MIDI pack, so I'm going to go through and grab one of those MIDIs and then show you how I go about adding to it to make it unique. Okay, for loop 1, I wanted to use free sounds and free instruments so that anybody can make it. So I've gone with the following. I've got the tape piano from Labs. We've got the violins from the free BBC orchestra from Spitfire Audio. We've got the choir from Labs as well. The horns in the brass section again from the BBC orchestra. And then the bass trombones as well, also from that BBC orchestra. And then finally we've got Hannah Peel's music box, again from Labs. To start with, I've gone for the piano. As you can see, I've just got the root note C playing the entire way through. It's just playing 2 bars at a time, and that repeats for the entire 16 bars. I then come up with this chord progression, which starts off at this octave, and after 8 bars is raised an octave. And then at the very top level, I've picked out notes from the chords below, and they just play short and sharp and quick, and altogether it sounds like this. Then, once I've added the halftime effect, it started to sound more like a drill melody. And because I've added the halftime, I've also added this EQ and taken out some of the low end. When I'm making drill melodies, especially dark orchestral type ones, what I like to do is have different sounds playing at different octaves, but playing similar notes, as it adds depth and width and keeps it sounding like one homogeneous loop. So with that in mind, I've added this violin. Again, I'm picking out notes from within the scale and repeating the use of notes that I've already used for the piano, and I've only got it playing in the second half of the 8 bars. And when it loops back round to play again, it's playing those same notes, but also a copy an octave up. Finally, there's some additional passing notes that play, and these are just serving as an accent really. And for the effects on the violin, I've got some reverb and just an EQ to dampen it a little bit, so it's not quite as prominent in the mix. Next up we've got the choir, and that's playing notes from within the same scale again, and you'll notice that it's playing when the violin's not and vice versa. This is because even though I EQ it out to try and make it not clash, I want them to play separately at some point in the loop so you can hear them on their own, as they both add something different. As far as processing on the choir goes, it's just a simple EQ, taking out most of the lows and raising some of the mid to mid highs. After that I've brought in this music box, and all that's doing is playing notes from within the chords at the start and the end of the bars where it's needed to add emphasis. For the processing on this, I've added a delay. As well as that, I've got a halftime applied with these settings, just to give it a bit more depth, because you can hear the halftime signal and a little bit of the original signal coming through as well. And finally, for the second half of the loop, I've added the brass in, both the horns and the trombones, and they're just adding some more depth in the bassier regions, because other than the piano, everything else I've added since has been in the higher ranges. So these 2 brass layers just bring in more at those bassier frequencies as I try and fill up the loop and make it sound more full. Again, there's no real crazy processing with these, I've just added EQs and taken out the highs. And finally, for processing the loop as a whole, I've added the Cymatics Origin plugin and gone for this crunchy and old preset just to give it a bit of a vintage feel. And that's pretty much it for this loop. I'll just add some drums onto it quickly and show you how it might sound as a full beat. I'll make sure to leave a link in the description so you can get the stems for this project for yourself and see what you think. for the second loop I wanted to try something a little bit different and use that MIDI pack I talked about earlier. We'll just have a quick look at the pack. It comes with 18 MIDI files with a whole variety of keys and BPMs, so you can use it for pretty much any genre you're making. I've had to listen to the whole pack. I mean, I helped make some of them, and I've gone for this Dr. MIDI. I think it's kind of dark sounding. It's a similar BPM to my project, so I think it's going to work well. As I've dragged it in though, I do want to make a small change to it. I'm going to split it up so the bass stays where it is, but the top level, which is basically the counter melody, I want to have separately because I'm probably going to half time that to give it a darker feel. So I've chosen my piano. I've gone for the Addictive Keys Studio Grand Noir, but any piano is going to work for this really. If it sounds dark, even better. I've duplicated it and taken that counter melody section, and I've cut it out of the first MIDI channel and pasted it into the second. I can now assign these to different channels in the mixer and apply different effects to them. In particular, half time to that higher counter melody. It's just sounding a little too happy on its own. After that, I've added my go-to Hyperion strings bank from Contact. One of the main reasons that I like it so much is all these different articulations it gives you, and in this case I've gone for this decress or decrescendo, as I like how it starts off high then peters off. As I said with loop 1, what I like to do is layer things up at similar notes but at different octaves to give it some depth and not make it overly complicated. So what I've done here is take those bass notes from the piano MIDI and pasted them into the violins, and instantly I'm getting dark vibes. I then copied that pattern again with these ooh vocals. It's just a nice sounding note progression, and I think whatever I added to it was going to sound good, but these violins, the multi-pianos and these vocals together just sound fire. Finally, I went to everybody's favourite and least favourite solo violin, the Gypsy Romantic Violin from the Balkan Ethnic Orchestra. I know it's used a lot by everybody, but it is a fire sounding violin, and if used right it can still sit well in a loop like this. It is stupid loud though, so I always turn it down before I start doing anything with it. Then I messed around and came up with this pattern. It's still using the same notes and the same scale, but I wanted to come up with a unique pattern so it sat differently in the mix and didn't just play the same notes over and over that everything else is playing. For processing, I've not added anything to that bassier piano. As I've already mentioned, I added half time to that counter melody section. I used these settings for that, and I also added an EQ to take out some of the lows, some of the highs, and boost the mids. For the violins, I added a free plugin called M Tremolo, just to give it some movement. And for the vocals, I added a Valhalla Vintage Verb with these settings. This EQ to take out a little bit of the lows but a lot of the highs. I added my favourite vocal plugin Vibes with the Ghost Vocal preset, and some shaper box to sidechain at the start of every bar. For that solo violin, as I said, it's really loud, so I dipped the volume quite a lot. Added a Valhalla Vintage Verb to that as well. An RC20 with a custom Vinyl 3 preset. It's basically the same as the normal Vinyl 3. I've just taken the noise off because I do that every time, so I saved it as a preset. And finally, I added this EQ that takes out the lows, the mids, and boosts the highs a little bit, as I wanted it to sit well alongside the other instruments. You'll also notice that I've panned the vocals to the left 40% and the solo violin right 40%, so they sit better together in the mix. And the final thing that I did was when I started adding drums, I didn't like where the 808s were going to sit, so I played around with Sound Shifter and raised the whole melody 3 semitones up, and now it's playing at F minor instead of D minor, and I really like how it sounds there. And that's pretty much it really for this loop. Pretty happy with how that one turned out as well. I'll make sure to leave a link in the description for the stems for that loop as well. And of course I'll make sure to leave a link in the description of where you can get your copy of that New Patent Sounds Piano MIDI Kit Essential Keys. It's absolutely free and it's a really good MIDI kit, so there's no reason not to go and get a copy. And that's pretty much it for this one. Let me know in the comments what you thought of the loops and the process as a whole. And be sure to keep an eye out for part 3, which is going to break down drill drums, and that's coming real soon. If you're new around here and not subscribed, or maybe this is your first time here, you like the video and think you're going to enjoy more content in the future, please consider hitting that subscribe button and the little bell next to it. Like I said, it helps me and the channel out against the YouTube algorithm, and I really appreciate your support. Other than that, I've been Razor. Stay safe, be productive, and I'll catch you on the next one.